Hello, Borden. My typing is going to not keep up. I don't know. We had, yeah, it's gonna be a teeny tiny group. I realized when I was setting up the room this morning, that there's three sessions on stress going on at the same time or really close together. So I'm not sure how that got through the scheduling process. So, um, although I'd like to think that the way that I'm looking at stress isn't the way that we've done Stress Take Charge in the past. That's what that's just Edmonton being its usual rebellious, think outside the box self, but that's okay. So I think we're going to start, and just if people join as they do, because I know yesterday we had some late folks coming in because just of issues starting, so they're only going to miss the disclaimer and the affiliation question. So it's not like it's going to be the end of the world. So hopefully everybody's doing well this morning. I got the weather update from across the places that are here so far, and it sounds like things are looking pretty good for a June. Is it the 9th today? 10th, June 10th. So, yeah, I know that my neighbors across the alley were saying that they want it to be really hot in June because they're supposed to be going back to work July, and so they want to have their summer now. And I was like, well, yeah, there's that. Or it could just be June. And then, summer can be summer and we can just kind of deal with it and roll with it. But I didn't tell them that because we're supposed to get together and make pie on the weekend, but you'll hear about that later. So welcome back, everybody. Um, my name is Carissa McKay. I don't know that I actually, and some people know who I am, which is good. And I don't know how that is because I clearly didn't write it on the slide, which was very foolish of me. But 31 feels like 40. Holy cow. Okay, well, see, they can just go there. I'll tell Jordan and Ainsley to head over to Borden where it's super hot. Um, yeah, and I remember when I was, well, on Borden, the base, there's not really water super close by that I could tell, but I get very disoriented when I'm not driving, so there might be tons of water and I just didn't know that it was there. So yeah, so welcome back. So last week we talked about things that we've been learning and unlearning and how that is challenging our brain. Wasaga Beach. Oh yes, I remember. Somebody had mentioned that, and they were going to go, and I didn't because I don't know, because I'm a nerd, I guess. I don't know, but anyway, Barrie is close as well. Okay, see, this is great. Like it's geography lessons right here in the comfort of our own homes, which is amazing. Yeah, I don't really know much about Ontario. Like literally an Alberta girl. The only times I've ever been out to Ontario is for work, and then it's training, and so we don't really have a lot of time to, go out and see the world, as it were, even if it's just outside our doorsteps. Which, from a stress management perspective, is a very not good use of time. But anyway, so back to the order of the day. So all of that learning and unlearning is challenging our prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that keeps us focused, in control, and basically allows us to do the things that we do every day on autopilot. And so when that gets a little bit fatigued, that's when we start making maybe some bad decisions, or we don't feel as good about ourselves or whatever anymore. So this week we're going to take a look at how we can better support that good old prefrontal cortex with some pretty basic stuff. Like we're not going to go into any crazy, great rocket sciencey things here. We're just going to be looking at the things that we honestly should be doing all the time, but with the perspective of this isn't all of the time, right? This is a kind of unusual circumstance. So before we do that, of course, we got to do the good old disclaimer. So the presentation that you were about to hear or view is the intellectual property of the Department of Natural Defense. Any reproduction or transmission of the slides contained is strictly forbidden. Some of the topics, not in this one, may be of a sensitive nature and not appropriate for children, so just be aware of who's sitting on your lap. Parental discretion is requested. Please understand that people's stories are theirs to share, and anything that is shared in the chat or on camera or wherever isn't to be discussed outside of the webinar. So it's a good old Vegas rule. And it is being recorded and will be available for viewing later on. And they seem to be uploading them pretty regularly. Like it's usually, this one will be up before, if there was a session next week, it would be up before the session next week. So it's getting pretty good for access. And of course, I would love as much active participation as you are comfortable doing, but feel free to follow along without having to use the chat video or microphone options if you prefer as well. Hello, Kathleen from Deep River, Ontario. Yeah, so that's the disclaimer. So let's see who we got on the land today. The first question is our first. Oh, I can never make the poll work the way that I want it to because I'm extra special. There's the first poll. So if you can just tell me who you are, that would be fabulous. We don't have a very big crew today, but that's okay. You guys are just clearly smarter than the average bears, and so you're all here. Why not? Good to have you. Perfect. Okay. And so last week we finished pondering the good news in all of this, and your homework was to continue pondering on your own those 3 key areas that we talked about in terms of getting through the new stuff and figuring out how you were making out with all of that. So from last week's poll, from the folks that were here, there was a couple of you that were knocking it out of the park, which was amazing to hear. That was awesome. And it's important to recognize that that could be how you were managing things into the foreseeable future. But it could also mean that at some point you might need to give yourself a little bit of a break or take a break, or maybe that break will be imposed upon you. And maybe at some point, any or all of us are going to need some more support. In any event, however that's all unfolding for you guys, just being aware of how you're doing, regularly checking in with yourself and being open to hearing what others are noticing about you, because sometimes we are the last to be sort of aware that things aren't going as well, and other people tune into that and let us know, sometimes gently, sometimes not so gently, but we need to be kind of just open to hearing that so that we can do what we need to do to get back on track. So like you've heard before, it's okay to be okay, but it's okay to not be okay too. So just knowing that that's all good. So how did that go? How did everybody do with their homework? Does anybody want to share any great aha moments that they had? You can either do it. I don't know if I have to give you microphone allow. I'm just going to allow everybody who wants it. If you want to chat on the there. So everybody who's here, if you want, you can speak using your microphone in the bottom, or you can just I know. We give you homework just because it's, you know, a little bit of a way to reflect. I don't know that we really are. I mean, I think my nerdy self, I think that I would hope that people do it because I think I would, because I am a super nerd. On the back of, well, this is what I have on my wall because it's my motto. And I'm really hoping that my daughter follows in my follows in my nerdy footsteps, but that's okay. So it's there. It's just, it was really just a way, an opportunity to reflect. So no big deal. If you have a chance at some point, maybe to look at it, just kind of to, I'm even thinking when we're kind of back to what, you know, normal is, and just take a look at what all of those things were that we needed to do in terms of acceptance and acknowledgement and that, and see how we did as we roll back into, he's a scientist. What would the world be without scientists? That's what I'd like to know. But and we need the scientists right now because we need a vaccine and we need a cure. So we need to, anyway. So yeah, so don't worry about the homework so much. Maybe just later reflect on it. But hopefully, now that we know, and hopefully feel better about the fact that the angst, if there was any, the overwhelmedness, if you got there, and the despair, is it Friday yet? Was all totally normal. It was totally expected, and what, oh, perfect, infectious disease is a specialty. Excellent. We need those people. Go husband. Go husband. Even though we know that that's now normal, it's supposed to suck and it's supposed to feel gross. We still have to make sure that we're doing what we can to ride out this wave for however long it may last, right? Like that's kind of our thing. We need to just sort of power through. But powering through isn't all that we need to do. There's some strategies that we can utilize. So not only do we not know exactly when this current situation is going to end, we don't know how long that end might be, depending on if there's any spikes, if we all of a sudden have a whole bunch of problems that arise that are completely out of the realm of current contemplation. We don't know what that's going to look like. And we don't even really know what it's going to look like in the more immediate future as we start rolling out the business resumption plans and what that's going to be when we get back into the office. Like, we're going to have all of those spacing signs and the plexiglass and the constant wiping down, and they can't have lunch together. And so even when we're going back to work, it's not back to work as usual, right? So there's still going to be these adjustments that are happening, and that uncertainty is still going to be there. So all that we know for sure is that it isn't going to be like it was. And all that not knowing is what's not good for us. We can deal with anything if we have parameters. If we know what it is that we're wrapping our heads around, we can deal with pretty much anything. That's how we got to the point where we are right now. But if there's this expectation that things just keep kind of going and going and going, and we're expected to flounder along, kind of making our way blindly through this swamp that we don't have any map or directions to, that's when fatigue starts to set in. That's when complacency starts to happen. That's when people start making bad decisions. And that happens from at the leadership level. And I think that that's happening now, because I think some of our leadership, not our local leadership, but I'm talking like national and provincial leaders, like that there's pressure, right? There's pressure to get things open, to get things back to normal. And I don't know that they're necessarily making the decisions that they should be if their brains weren't suffering from the exact same fatigue that everybody else is as well. You know what I mean? So everybody's in this same kind of big situation, and we're still expecting people to make these great decisions. So are there strategies that will allow us to find a sense of direction in a world that seems to have lost its way? Well, fortunately, there are. And one of the most important things that you can do in a time when uncertainty is the word of the day is to have a routine or a schedule. It sounds really dumb. So this is the video that I was talking about last week, and it turns out that it's only actually 4 minutes. So I figured we'd have time, especially since we've just got a small group. So apologies if you've seen it, but I'm just gonna show the video now. Hopefully it works.
The U.S. has the highest rate of increase in the world, and our numbers...
Health workers diagnosed with the virus represent 14% of all those cases.
And unemployment claims are higher than they have ever been in our history.
If you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. I've been a Navy SEAL for 36 years. Every morning, my instructors, who at the time were all Vietnam veterans, would show up in my barracks room, and the first thing they'd do was inspect my bed. The corners would be square, the covers would be pulled tight, the pillow centered just under the headboard, and the extra blanket folded neatly at the foot of the rack. It was a simple task, mundane at best, but every morning we were required to make our bed to perfection. It seemed a little ridiculous at the time, particularly in light of the fact that we were aspiring to be real warriors, tough, battle-hardened SEALs. But the wisdom of this simple act has been proven to me many times over. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. Our struggles in this world are similar, and the lessons to overcome those struggles and to move forward, changing ourselves and changing the world around us, will apply equally to all. At times, it will test you to your very core, and it will be painful. It will be discouraging. At that darkest moment of the mission is a time when you need to be calm, and your inner strength must be brought to bear. If you want to change the world, you must be your very best in the darkest moments. But changing the world can happen anywhere, and anyone can do it. If I have learned anything in my time traveling the world, it is the power of hope. The power of one person. One person can change the world by giving people hope. Start each day with a task completed. Find someone to help you through life. Respect everyone. Know that life is not fair and that you will fail often. But if you step up when the times are the toughest, lift up the downtrodden, and never, ever give up, if you do these things, the next generation and the generations that follow will live in a world far better than the one we have today. And what started here will indeed have changed the world for the better. But the question is, what will the world look like after you change it?
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I love that so much. I love it. Um, I feel like that video, and apologies if you've seen it, but I feel like it just so beautifully lays out what we need to be able to do to keep going. So I'm glad, Jean-Paul, that you listen to it every day. So I'm sorry if this was the second time you had to hear it, and I love his voice. I love his voice. I just think that he is so inspiring, and he looks so good in his uniform with all his stuff, and it makes you kind of sit up and listen, right? And I think that it speaks to all of us in I think I might. Hopefully, there it is. It was the last thing I cut and pasted, so that was the only reason it was still in there. So yeah. So as we saw in that video, that routine is what allows us to have those little successes from the moment that we get up and make our bed. And I do, and I have for the longest time. I always make my bed. I do not ever have an unmade bed. It's a it's a habit I'm trying to instill in my 11-year-old, but it's a tough sell. Clearly, I need to make her watch this video over and over and over again. But that simple act of making your bed every day before you even leave your room means you've already got that one accomplishment under your belt. And I think that that was really important at the beginning when we were first going into this, having those little things that were showing us that, yeah, in fact, you did something, right? Because we were still trying to figure it all out. But even now, as we're going into the 12th week, that uncertainty is still here. And we still need to figure that out. And we still need to feel that sense of accomplishment every day because there's still a lot of unknowns. So in terms of what I want to take a look at is the day by day. How are we going to do that? So without daily or weekly goals, whatever we hope or plan to accomplish is just kind of floating around in the ether. I know for me, and I think that it was someone last week that had said lists, right? Like they use a lot of lists. Those are critical because you need to have something concrete that you can look at to say, okay, what was it that I needed to get done today? So we need to have that plan from which to work, which it's never set in stone. I mean, our daily plan wasn't set in stone when we were working as usual in whatever our normal environment was or is. It was open to and probably needing to be adjusted from time to time. So neither are the plans that we have and the goals that we have today. They're also going to be, not necessarily written in stone. They're needing to be flexible by virtue of how we're dealing with stuff. But what are the things that you want to do? What are your must-dos? What are the tasks that you have to get done? And the other day, it had nothing to do with work, but one of the tasks that I had to get done was I had to get dog food or the dog wasn't going to eat. Like I literally was scraping the bottom. I'm not scraping because it's kibble, but I'm like at the bottom of the thing of kibble. And I'm like, I need to get dog food. So that was a goal. And was it a priority? Absolutely, because I didn't want my dog to be hungry. So, it's sort of all relative in terms of what those goals and priorities might be. So what those priorities are going to depend day to day. if you are finally got a chance to go in and get your hair cut, then your priorities are going to shift because you're going to take that appointment because the next available appointment is probably another 6 weeks from now. And I don't know that I could have gone another 6 weeks. So it was dire. I was channeling Jim Carrey. It wasn't good. So we know that there's things that you may as well not put on the list. I have stuff on my list. I'm going to show you that in a minute. I have stuff on my list that is not going to get done, right? I put it on there in the hopes that I would have an opportunity in this time to maybe work on some of those things, but maybe they're not going to, so I should probably just take it off the list because it's just going to make me feel bad that I've never gotten around to it. The other piece is that time blocking. So that third point, and for some people, they need to have that be very specific. It needs to be like 8:30 to 9:30, 9:30 to 10:30, etc. And for me, I don't like that stringency. So I just have bigger blocks of time. So kind of morning or early morning, late morning, early afternoon, late afternoon, and evening. And that evening block is just there just in case something came up in the day and I still need to get stuff done for the next day. So it's just there. But I don't always fill the evening block. And sometimes the evening block is filled with stuff that's fun, right? Like make the pie crust for the next day. So things like that. So my day, and I made this is my actual wall calendar that I had. This was when my work office was in my husband's office. I've since moved home because my daughter was tired of going to the office. I'm like, seriously? Anyway, so I had to reset up my whole office. And so this is now, it still looks like this. It's just right there. It doesn't have as much stuff on it, and you can see that the sticky notes have changed. And beside on the other side of the calendar, over to where it says ongoing tasks, there's a sheet of paper that shows all of the sticky notes that have been done, and I stick them on there. And so it's a nice thick pile of random multicolored sticky notes. And it shows me that I've actually been productive. I've gotten stuff done. I have been able to tick off things as I have moved through these weeks. So I don't rely on this as much anymore, but I really needed it at the beginning because I was kind of lost. I was floundering. And so I needed something that I could look at and say, okay, what am I doing? What do I need to get done? And those projects in the corner, I've like literally done one of them. I made dog boots because my dog wears boots because I don't like all the filth and stuff that she walks. Anyway, so that's my OCD coming through. But anyway, so I had to make some dog boots. Those have since been ripped to shreds, and now I need to make more. But that's the only project that I've done. So I also now have behind me, you can see, is my whiteboard. So I've evolved to this whiteboard, and I just have the days of the week across the top, and I write this stuff on Monday, and then there's arrows that actually point to Tuesday and Wednesday because I didn't get to it on Monday, so I just shifted it. But now here we are on Wednesday, and everything that I needed to get done was done for today. And then I have things that are going to be coming up Thursday, Friday. And I also, because I am a nerd, thank you, I love the colors too. I also have my scribbler, which is supposed to be a bullet journal, because if you Google bullet journals, they're beautiful and I love them and I want to be able to do them, but I haven't given myself a chance to really like figure it out and learn how to do it. So it's kind of ugly right now, but it's a big, thick graph paper. It's what it's supposed to be. So I'm working on it. And maybe what I need to do is recognize that I need to use a break that I give myself to maybe work on something like that, because then I'm still feeling like I'm doing something productive. It's going to give me a better sense of organization. It's going to give me satisfaction. It's going to give me joy. And so even though you might say to yourself, well, I don't necessarily agree that you deserve a Kit Kat, but we all deserve a break. And I would argue that in these circumstances, we all need a break. Right? So people often think that if they just buckle down and get to it, nose to the grindstone, forget to go to the washroom, eat lunch at your desk, tied to the computer, that's going to increase their productivity. But we know for a fact that it actually decreases productivity. And really, the people that had it dialed were the smokers, because they always had the right idea. Were they stuck on a problem? Go for a smoke. Did they have a fight with a coworker? Go for a smoke. Got to psych yourself up to have a tough conversation with the boss? Go for a smoke. You get my point. Now, I'm clearly not advocating that we all take up smoking or vaping, just saying. But they had the right idea, right? It's a fantastic idea to get up, move around, get a breath of fresh air, stretch, do some movement, get some different perspective. And everybody probably has already experienced it, that you come back after having stepped away and all of a sudden the answer is there and the problem just sort of miraculously sorts itself out and you've got this burst of energy and you can get stuff done. So we need to do that regularly throughout the day. There's also a little bit of a double entendre with that, give yourself a break, and that's in the need to give ourselves a break. And I probably said it ad nauseum last session, and I'm going to say it a couple more times in this one, is that we need to give ourselves a break. We need to cut ourselves just a little bit of slack. When we think about the people who have been working from home for a long time, like we're talking writers, bloggers, artists, maybe financial planners, real estate agents, business entrepreneurs, home entrepreneurial kind of people, they've had lots of time to figure out how to set up their space, how to create an office, how to divide that work-life balance when everything is all in the same space. They've had time to learn how to do that. And they didn't have to do it in a crisis pandemic situation. So I have a decent chair, but it's not awesome. I have a cushion tied to the back to try to give me some better lumbar support. I went and bought a footrest at Staples because that wasn't great. My hips were getting all wonky. So you do the best you can. And that's what we have been doing. We have been doing the best we can with what we've got. And we can therefore not expect to have that same level of performance. And maybe we are already there. Maybe there was this like curve where we kind of were sucking at the beginning and we sort of figured it out and we're kind of up here now. And that's great, right? That speaks to the adaptability that we have as human beings. That speaks to how well we are able to adjust to things. I was actually talking to my daughter's assistant principal the other day because we got an email with the class lists and the supply lists for September, which I loved September when I was in school. I loved getting new stationery and pencils and papers and labeling everything. And the link was broken. So I was calling back and forth and emailing back and forth saying, I can't access any of this stuff. So anyways, she finally called me and we were talking about that and she fixed it. She's like, thanks, because there's other people that don't have this problem. So they sent the corrected email. But it was just so hopeful to have this idea of going and buying back to school supplies, because hopefully in September, that's going to be something that we can count on again, but we don't know. So, and she said, you know what, I want September to be back to normal because we're all in survival mode right now. And when she said that, it was like, yes, we are. We still all are. And we all wanted to go back to just going to the classroom and going to the office and going and getting our school supplies because it's fun, even though it's expensive. But, we're in survival mode. And while that isn't licensed to sit at home and cry in our soup and waste the day watching Netflix, we have been expecting ourselves not only to cope, but perform under these particularly trying circumstances. And guess what? It is taking its toll on our prefrontal cortex. Like I said last week, it has been screaming since weeks 3 or 6. I'm done. I'm done. When is it back for tea and biscuits? I'm over this. And so we have to fight that. And this idea of having a schedule, whatever that looks like, is one of the things that we can do to say, hey, you know what? I get it. I hear what you're saying. And then it responds with having this schedule and having this sense of accomplishment, by making your bed and doing all those other things. And then it finally kind of says, okay, fine, I can deal with this. It's not great, but I can live with it for now. And that's what we want, right? That's what we want to kind of appease that prefrontal cortex into saying, yeah, it's going to be okay. We're doing what we can. So the last piece of that is the plan to be interrupted. And again, this happens at work. How many people went to work, whatever that looked like for them, back before March 17th, and their day just went along tickety-boo, everything exactly according to plan? Anybody? No, right? We know that those interruptions are going to happen. And even with time blocking and prioritizing and having all of that stuff set up, things are going to come up. Right now, the Wi-Fi might go. Your kids might need you. The dog might need food. You need to just get out because the hairdresser says it's time, right? Knowing that those interruptions are going to happen makes it a little bit easier to take, takes the sting out of it a little bit. And that's going to help that day by day sense of accomplishment, sense of schedule, sense of normalcy sort of set in a little bit. So these 4 things are honestly one of the biggest contributors that we have to dealing with that uncertainty. We can't suddenly start inviting people over any more than we could 7 or 11 weeks ago. We can't switch out who we're co-isolating with. right? We can't say, and I'm done with you guys. I want some new, fresh people. We can't do that. But we can create that schedule that allows us to fall into a routine that allows us to kind of feel a little bit more of a sense of calm and accomplishment and routine and normacy. So that's one thing that we can do to soothe that brain that has been working overtime trying to get us through this. But that said, it's okay. It's important to set those goals. Daily, longer term, that's all fine. But sometimes you're not going to hit the target, and that's okay. There are going to be days when there are no arrows in that yellow circle, and that's fine. Did you have 20 things on your to-do list? Maybe. Did you get through some of them? Good. Are the ones that are remaining life-threatening? No? Perfect. Then tomorrow is another day, right? We kind of have to be able to roll with it that way. But Houston, we still may have a problem, because I have heard from a number of people that there are folks out there that are working 12 plus hours a day. And part of that, I think, is the convenience of just, it's not even convenient. It's just that your laptop is right here, where you used to hopefully be able to like pack everything up, shut down, take your stuff, grab your lunch bag and head home. And that was the end of the day. Now it's just kind of always here. So part of that 12 plus hours might be guilt, or that sense of maybe I should just do a little bit more work. But the question is why? Because that might be work that you never did before and still everything was fine. And then there's the folks, of course, that were working 12 plus hours a day beforehand because that was just their job, right? There wasn't enough hours in their day to be able to do it at work, or they would just stay longer, or they would bring work home. And so that was their old normal, and this is their new normal as well. But that doesn't necessarily mean that those of us who put in our time, got the stuff that we needed to get done, suddenly now need to feel like we have to do more to justify our roles, our existence, or whatever. And I think that there's a lot of that sense of, I need to prove to somebody out there that I'm still relevant and I'm still doing stuff that's making a difference, or I'm still doing my job, right? Like, so there's all kinds of factors that are in there that I think maybe sometimes lend themselves to us feeling like we need to put in all that extra time. So we need to be realistic. It's absolutely important. But we also need to, again, be kinder and gentler on ourselves. We're not always going to hit that target, though every day we should try our best, obviously, because we're doing the best we can with those resources that we have available, with our pillow stuffed chair and our Staples footrest. So we can't expect our output to be optimal. So we need to just do what we can and feel like it's good enough. And sometimes good enough truly is good enough. Because remember, and if any of you have ever taken Stress Take Charge, you will know that it's about stress management, not stress elimination, right? We need to have some stress. Some of that stress was probably really good because it made us do things that we might not otherwise have done. What I have noticed is the people's yards right now are looking so much better than in previous years because people were home and got it done. They raked the gross leaves from the fall. They aerated, they power raked, they cleaned up their flower beds, and everything is just looking so much nicer this year than in previous years. It's kind of remarkable. So we need to have some stress. But what the research is telling us is that the amount of stress that we need, we need to have some stress. Some stress is good. That, and so many new fences, yeah, because they're like, get away, neighbor. No, I'm joking. We need to find ways to navigate that uncertainty. And what the research is telling us about the best way to do that is that it's back to the basics. Good old self-care 101. And just to be clear, when I'm talking about self-care, I'm not talking about yoga and bubble baths, okay? Yoga and bubble baths are great. And if you can fit those in, do them. But I'm talking about the actual basic self-care stuff, the foundational things, because self-care is the foundation of stress management. When you take care of those basics, it allows you to be prepared for all the weirdness that the world is going to throw your way. And that first pillar, and I think it's the most important one, is sleep. Now, I'm not going to get into all the details about sleep because there's been tons of webinars on sleep that have been done and are available, but I'm just going to kind of go into how it relates to the prefrontal cortex and stress and new stuff and kind of in this context. So it is one of the pillars of health, and I do believe that it is the most important one. And I'm a former dietitian. I worked for 20 plus years as a dietitian. So you'd think that nutrition would be number one for me, but no, it's sleep. It's part of the performance triad. So any of you who are familiar with that, and the other two pieces of the triangle, I'll talk about those momentarily as well. But it's interesting because they're all affected by stress, but they also all influence how we can deal with stress, right? So we want to be sure that we are able to deal with those things by getting enough of the sleep that we need. So when we're sleeping well, we can deal with those challenges. And when we're not, then it's less likely that's going to be happening, right? So there's kind of this chicken or the egg thing. So we want to try to get ahead of that. We want to make sure that we're doing all of the things that we can to make sure that we get adequate sleep so that we can handle the stress when we need to. Because without adequate, consistent, quality sleep, all three of those things, they need to happen all the time. Eventually, our health and our quality of life will begin to suffer. Some people, they say, and I'm sure that in the previous webinars or all the sleep webinars, they've said that people are like, oh yeah, 6 hours, 5 hours, I'm fine with that. And while you may feel fine, and there are a few people who have that short sleeping gene, most people do actually need physiologically 7 to 9 hours. So if you're okay with 5, 6, you're getting by, you would be building a rocket ship to Mars if you were getting the 7 to 9. I mean, that's kind of what happens to our brain. We can get used to anything, but we thrive, we perform better, we perform optimally when we're actually getting what we need to be getting. Because our gray matter starts to deteriorate when we are having to deal with too little sleep for too long of a period of time. And the executive functioning that's already taking a real beating right now is, again, one of the real victims in inadequate sleep. So we really need to be making sure that we're getting the rest that we need. So would definitely encourage you to check out some of those other sleep webinars that are available, because they go right into the sleep hygiene and, the impacts of alcohol and shift work and all those kinds of things. So they'll cover all of those things in much greater detail if you're interested in that. The second piece is engaging in activity. And I think that this is one of those things that, since the gyms have been closed and unit PTs put on hold, that it's for some people been kind of freeing because they can do what they want. But for some people, it's also been really challenging because it means that they're sort of on their own in terms of creating that motivation for themselves to get working. But despite what all that is looking like, and in Alberta, I don't know what's happening across the country, but gyms are supposed to be opening this Friday, which I find kind of terrifying, actually, but that's just me. However you're working out or not working out or trying to figure out how to fit it in, it is just as important now as it was then to be getting as much activity as we can, not just for our physical well-being, but truly for our mental well-being right now as well. There's a gal that I used to do Zumba with, and we've had a couple of Zumba classes, and I've run into her at Staples, and we've chatted a little bit back and forth by text. And she said she's really missing the schedule of the workout. She's really feeling it, and she's really feeling it kind of here as opposed to here. And so I said to her that my morning workouts are that kind of key thing for me that's keeping me sort of together. And I think I skipped that whole section, or maybe not, I don't know. Anyway, I'm sure we'll get there. But getting yourself moving, getting the heart pumping, getting your sweat on, it gives us benefits beyond the cardiovascular and fitness and flexibility that we need. So you have to find something that's going to work, and you might find that you really like working out with your new coworkers. Like, I mean, how cute is that little guy? I would love to be doing stretching with somebody that cute. I haven't convinced my daughter to work out with me in the morning, because I work out in the morning normally, like I don't on webinar days. But normally speaking, it's first thing in the morning, and you can't see it on my orange board, but there's actually a sticky note that says workout, and it's the first thing across the whole top. And so when I wake up in the morning, I put my workout clothes on, I go and I walk the dog, I come back, feed her, and then I have no reason but to come, like I have no excuse. I come downstairs, I go to our little workout corner, and I do my workout. And I don't know how many times just the fact that I had my gym strip on already made me just do it. And it wasn't necessarily an epic workout. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, personal best. No, but I did it. I committed to it. And now I have another accomplishment that I can check off, and it's only 8:30, right? So that's kind of another way that that physical activity can really play into how you're going to do better by sticking or getting back to those basics and finding a schedule. You know, they kind of go together. And then the last triad piece is improving nutrition. So choosing to eat well when it might be easier to do skip the dishes is another important stress management strategy. And I want to just throw the caveat in there that, you know what, when there are days and you're just done and I'm like, I'm over it, the stupid Wi-Fi didn't go, the kids' teachers were on my case, the kids were on my case, my spouse was on my case, the dog was insane, whatever. Sometimes skip the dishes is a good idea at that time, right? Like, so just do that. Give yourself that break where you can just bring some comfort food in and enjoy that and go, right? And then the next day, start over. But we don't want to throw caution to the wind and just eat whatever, whenever, because our schedules are so flexible. We want to try to still find that rhythm where we're planning meals, getting groceries, making meals, stocking up on staples, doing all those kinds of things. And even that is getting more challenging because, as I said, I used to love getting groceries. I hate doing it now because there's like so much stuff that you can't seem to get anymore because people are hoarding. I mean, part of it's hoarding. Part of it, I think, is the supply chain is starting to be impacted as well, right? So having those essentials on hand, having your pantry stocked, having your fridge stocked, those are key. And again, lots of webinars on dealing with proper nutrition and eating during COVID and eating well and living well and doing all those kinds of things. So I would encourage you to check that out. But there's really, this time is such a great opportunity to hone or learn some skills. And if you are co-isolating with people and they have two hands and they can help, everybody can get involved, right? The little ones can rip lettuce, they can set the table, the bigger kids can saute vegetables. My daughter made us omelets for supper the other week, which was great. So there's lots of things that you can do. Your spouse can be the sous chef to your Gordon Ramsay, and you can just, you know, pretend you're on a cooking show. My husband and I used to do that, but again, nerds, as I said. And actually my husband and our daughter made mozzarella on the weekend. Like, they made mozzarella. It was the coolest thing ever. Like, so cool. They had to call me up. I was sewing masks. Like, how freaking pandemic is that? Like, my people are making mozzarella and I'm sewing masks. It's like we were in a bunker. And our dog is actually this little white fluffy thing, but she could have been Cujo. That's just kind of what the image was in my mind. But anyway, so I'm sewing masks in the basement and my daughter comes downstairs and says, can you help us? The cheese is too hot and the Papa's hands don't fit in the gloves that we had, and you had to knead the cheese. So the gloves that we had were actually leftover ones from a hair color kits because it was all that we had. So I put the gloves on and it was hot, but it was so cool because it was like a bowl full of, it looked like cottage cheese or ricotta cheese kind of. And I said to my husband, well, what am I supposed to do? And he's like, well, knead it. And I'm like, okay. So I make dough all the time. So I start kneading the cheese and it went from this weird loose consistency to this glossy ball of like mozzarella. It was the most amazing thing. It was so cool and it was delicious. So we had it on crackers, and then on Monday night, I used that cheese to make pizza, and all the whey that was left over, I used that last night, some of it to make pancakes, and the rest I'm going to freeze. I'm going to use it in soups and stews and whatever. So it's so cool. It was the funnest thing ever. And if you're on your own, if you don't happen to have a Gordon Ramsay and a sous chef available, set up your own kitchen party, right? Use the technology that we have. Grab your laptop or your tablet, set it up in the kitchen, pick a recipe, make it simultaneously with your friend or your family member. You know, chat, compare notes, laugh when they're burning something and they laugh when you cut your finger. Hopefully that doesn't happen. And then you sit down and you enjoy that meal together, right? So that's way more fun than doing it by yourself. So lots of ways that you can kind of take those things that we sometimes take for granted, or we're tired of looking at a screen, but sometimes it's still that thing that we can use to kind of tie us all together. And then at the end of the week or the end of the day, what you might want to do is, when people are just done and they've tried figuring out how to do their work in a new way, they've tried to do school in a new way, just hanging out with no screens in the dark, playing board games, drinking hot chocolate. This is actually my daughter and my husband on Earth Day, and that's what we did, and it was awesome. And again, if you're on your own, there's nothing stopping you from turning all the lights out, getting a Zoom meeting set up, putting on some candles, and drinking hot chocolate with your friend and just, shooting the breeze. Use the technology to get that connection that we crave so much in this time. And it's still downtime, it's still connection. And yes, technology is involved, but you get to see a person who you miss and want to spend time with. And so it's kind of a win-win. So those family time things are really important as well, whatever that happens to look like. And then we need to remember to find ways to be kind. I think that we need to be kind to ourselves all the time, and we definitely need to be kind to other people. And it's always important, but perhaps more so now than ever before. And these are kindness rocks that my daughter and I did last summer. And so it needs to have a different flavor, obviously, because you can't just go around touching stuff and giving people things anymore. But we went to the ravine, collected a bunch of rocks, brought them home, washed them, painted them, and then decorated them up with things like "you rock," ha ha ha, or "you can do hard things," things like that. And then we went back around the neighborhood and we dropped them all off. We put them in the bus shelter or the bus stops. We put them on light standards. We put them on people's stoops. And then the next day we went around again to sort of see, and all the rocks had been picked up and taken. So we were able to have spread kindness in our community. And as I said, we wouldn't necessarily do it like that now, but what they're doing instead, and we've seen this when we've gone down into the ravine with the dog, is there's a bunch of people that have been making COVID creatures. So same idea, they take the rocks, they paint them, they just put signs up saying, please leave the COVID creatures for others to enjoy. And then they're just kind of there, like they're painted as monsters or unicorns or rainbows or whatever. And it's just kind of fun to be out there walking and seeing all of those like little splashes of color and finding all of the different ones that you can find. So that kindness is really, oh my gosh, that's awesome. I love it. See, those are the things, secret ninja bags. Oh my gosh, I love it. Right? Somebody said that there was a wine ninja. And I was like, ooh, I don't even like wine, but how fun would that be, right? So yeah. And then I don't know if you guys are familiar with Twitch and Allison. They're former So You Think You Can Dance contestants. And I don't know if they won or didn't win or whatever, but now they're married and they have a bunch of kids. And they have a YouTube channel and they do, and I can't remember what it's called, but they have, if you Google Twitch and Allison, you'll find it. It's Boss Family Workouts, and they dance. And it's just a follow along dance party. So that's what I do on Friday mornings as a break from my normal interval training, circuit training kind of thing that I do. And what I really, really appreciate about him, especially, is he just seems like such a wonderful person. And he says, you know what, you guys, we just are doing this. This is week 3 or month, whatever, of doing this. And it's because we're just trying to spread light and love. They're spreading light and love in this hard time. And oh, braces and passing, I love it. Okay, can you put one in the mail and send it to Edmonton? And these are the things, these are the kinds of things, people who chalk the walk, like if someone has chalked the walk, do the hopscotch. If there's a box that says dance party, do your staying alive or chicken dance or whatever in that square. If it says climb a tree, like pretend to climb the tree, like just let go, pretend nobody's watching. Again, we all probably don't have any F's left to give yet anymore, so why not? Like, who cares? Just have fun. Someone put it out there for enjoyment, entertainment, and to make things a little bit better, right? So yeah, this is what we're trying to do. So again, the homework, the completely optional homework, if you want. Let me see if I can add the handout. There it is. It's the pandemic action plan, because everybody needs to have one of those. And no, it doesn't involve building a bunker. But it's stuff that hopefully you can do to deal with all of those self-care things. Like, what are you doing to hitting those markers? And honestly, they're the markers that we want to hit all the time, right? Like, the better we are at self-care when things are good, the easier it's going to be to do those things that are self-care when things are a little bit more tenuous. So the plan is going to be different than it looks in the future, but certainly it could be a really good foundation for how you want to move forward. Because again, we're not going to be moving back into things that look anything like what our office work space looked like coming here, right? So there's still going to be lots and lots of adjustments that we're needing to make. So the takeaways, keep in mind the importance of those accomplishments, right? No matter how small. Set your goals for each day and break them down into priorities that will sort of fall out over the course of the week. Obviously focusing on getting the top things done, but whatever doesn't end up with a check mark at the end of it, beside at the end, why can't I talk? At the end of the day, if it doesn't have a check mark beside it, hopefully it isn't earth-shatteringly bad. Breaks are important. Even if you aren't as productive as you may normally have been, or maybe you're more productive, then you need those breaks even more, right? It's still important to get up, move around, get some air, get some water, pet the dog, hug the kid, whatever. Know that you're going to be interrupted and try to be okay with it. Remember those basics of self-care, getting enough sleep, staying as active as you can, finding new, innovative, fun ways to keep you moving, that keep you in shape. Eat well, skip the dishes for Takeout Wednesdays. Does everybody do Takeout Wednesdays, by the way? Does everybody know about that? Yeah, so there was these kitchen parties that George Stroumboulopoulos used to do a couple weeks ago, and it was wicked. So they don't have it on anymore. He had a live Facebook feed. So every Wednesday is Takeout Wednesday. And the idea behind that is if you've still got little places in your neighborhoods that are doing takeout or what's it called? Curbside pickup, that you take out from there and then support the little, not chain ones, but I mean, support them too, right? But just really it's for the independent little restaurants that it's their cafe or their whatever. And so it's to support those organizations so that their staff still stay busy and they stay open and you get to enjoy delicious food that you used to go to with your family. Now once a week you get to bring something in. So that was Takeout Wednesday. So I think that's awesome. We try to do that. And there's enough places around that are close because I don't want to be driving all over Edmonton necessarily. So I want to kind of pick the closer ones. We've done a duplication twice so far of pasta because it was so good. And we literally got 3 meals out of that, which was bonus. But yeah, so that's Takeout Wednesday. So save your skip dishes for Takeout Wednesday. And for the rest of the time, hone those family cooking skills together. Or like I said, queue up your friend, do your kitchen party on your own, and yeah, just enjoy your meals that way. We're actually I mentioned the pie party. We're across the alley, the family there, they have a daughter the same age as our daughter. They actually are going to, because we've been good, like we're cohorts or whatever, right? So they're going to make a pie together, and Jordan and Ainsley are going to make a pie together, and Chris and I are going to make a pie together, and then we're going to have like a pie eating party. Social distancing, but there's going to be so much pie. It's going to be awesome. And my crust is terrible. I'm a terrible crust. I may break down and just buy a tender flake ready to go crust because dough, bread, cakes, biscuits, sorted. Pie crust is my nemesis, but we shall overcome. And then be kind and practice compassion. It's been said a lot, but I don't think it can be repeated enough. Kindness is not overrated, and we need more of it in a world that is clearly coming apart at the seams. So be kind to yourself, practice compassion, and cut everybody some slack, right? And that's not a get out of jail free card. We still have to be responsible adults, accountable to ourselves, our employer, our country. But we need to realize that looking out for one another, speaking out when something isn't right, and owning it if you're the one that's out of line is the only sure way that we can all come out of this on the other side together, healthy, and maybe a little bit better than when we went in. So the last 2 slides, guys, you've been so patient, the resources, and I do honestly encourage you to utilize those as much as you can. If you know someone who's struggling, reach out to them, send them a text, send them the phone number, let them know that they're not alone, right? Because I think that that's one of the things people just fear still, the judgment and the why can't I think of the word? Anyway, the negativity associated with reaching out for help, right? It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength, 100%. So, oh yeah, see, and people have these great recipes, and I do all the stuff, like I barely add the ice water and I hardly touch it, and I pat it into a ball and I make a disc and I put it in saran and I put it in the fridge and I roll it out and then I put it on the rolling pin and I roll it into, like I do all those things, and then I blind bake it and still it's like tragic. It's tragic. The grandmas of the world would shun me and my pie crust. Oh my gosh. So yeah, resources. And the last two polls, I will put those up for you. Hopefully you learned this, you learned a little, reminded yourselves of some stuff, and you're going to take that light and love and spread it out into the world. I like that I can say that and not feel like I'm being, I don't even know. I don't even know. I think it's important. And I think everybody, you know, whether you're a hardcore military guy, JTF, you still have light and love that you can spread to the world, as do everybody else, right? All of us. We all have that. And then the final one, where is it? Come on. Why does it always do this to me? One day, I'm going to be able to do this with no problems. And yet, no, I don't want to add a new poll. I want to add this poll. There we go. And I think I put it in yesterday. Yesterday, Heather and I had only dissatisfied. You could only be dissatisfied. You could be extremely dissatisfied or extremely dissatisfied. It was hilarious. So, and for those of you who didn't hear us talk yesterday, we are just kind of putting it out there that a couple things. There's an injury reduction series that Heather is doing on Thursdays. So the second session is tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So that's one thing, and it's about injury reduction. There's next week and then one left on rest and recovery. And in July and August, we're going down, like not we personally, Edmonton, but the health promotion webinars is going down to 3 a week, I think in total. So 2 English and 1 French, just to kind of give everybody a break and some time to focus maybe on doing some of their local things, and to take into consideration that people might be still wanting to take some time off. So there's going to be a smaller slate of webinars available, and then we're going to obviously see how things pan out for oops, I forgot the last slide. I just like this guy so much better. I'm gonna put my little ninja up because I just think he's awesome. And yeah, so we're going to have fewer of that, and then as we move forward and get a better sense of what it's going to look like moving forward in September, then there are probably still going to be lots of virtual opportunities, depending on how people are doing with like classrooms and number of minimum participants and all those kinds of things. So lots of stuff still on the unknowns board, but just to let you know that there's still going to be things that we're going to be providing for you, hopefully to give you what you need. And yeah, so that's it for me. I am done, except for my Tuesday webinar series. That's got 4 sessions left. That's Appetite for Change. It's all the non-nutrition things that people sometimes forget to think about when they're trying to move forward with improving their health, as opposed to just getting stuck on kind of the scale and the weight and the numbers and those kinds of things. So that's the series that we're doing, also at 10 o'clock. We kind of really like this 10 o'clock time slot. But I want to just say thank you to everyone for it's all good. It doesn't even matter. I don't know what they look. I don't know. It's all good. So yeah, I just want to say thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. And I hope that you all do super awesome. It's my dog. Do super awesome as you all transition back to work. I hope it goes really smoothly. I hope you all stay well. I hope that you are able to move forward from this in a really positive fashion. And I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for your great comments. And yeah, enjoy those videos, enjoy those links. You're very welcome. Take it easy. Enjoy the weather if it's beautiful, because we don't know how long it's going to last. So yeah, it's been a slice. So if everybody's good, everybody clicked on the handout. Thank you. I will. Thank you so much, Lisa. All right. Perfect. So take it easy. Bye, everybody.